on her life, on her philosophy. But when I pressed her, the best she could do was to identify a single biology class which dealt with evolution, which was a complete mystery to her, given her background, because history sort of started when her dynastic totalitarians were born. But she said even that took a wicked turn to the politically correct direction by the time she was done.
Universities now, at the humanities level, from everything I read, are a disgrace. The treason of the clerks. They are so suffocated by these arch and empty philosophies that have no logic and are punitive. I'm a person that was so taken by the university that I almost worshipped it. And now I tell people that have younger children, 20, 21, 22, don't go to the damn university unless you're taking science. Go to a trades college or just go out on your own. It's the saddest thing that has happened in the Western world, that we've allowed second-rate minds, political agents, propagandization as instruction. We have decimated the soul of the university.
I mean, look at what Animal Farm did for you. That's what reading great books does for people. You know, it illuminates their soul. It's not optional. And I'm so appalled that that was your experience at Columbia. It's so awful that you went through all that and managed to get to this great university, and you know, and that you had to shut yourself down, and that your basic conclusion was that it was a waste of time. Now, did you have courses where that wasn't the case? Did you have courses that were worth it?
I mean, so one class I remember in my senior year, it was called the Western Civilization, the music art. One of the core that Columbia had is the Western art and the music.
Has still,
right,
not for long.
But then I was excited to learn about, but I thought at the end of the day, this is still the West. America is in the West, right? It would be funny if you want to study Eastern music at the end of in the core. And the professors like, who has a problem with calling the Western civilization like art? And then every single one of them all lifting their hands because they were saying there are so many artists were greater than Beethoven and Mozart. We silenced them, erased them all, and that's why we have to now end up studying these like bigots, you know, who are racist. And I'm like, and then they were like looking at me, why are you not putting your hands up? Somebody who doesn't have the problem with talking about Western civilization. So that's just like, I was like, do I even have to do this to graduate? And that was, of course, necessary to do that course to graduate. So every class had an element of being a politically correct and shaping you how you think. And I learned how to censor myself so well after Columbia. And then I was freaked out one day. It's like, what am I doing? This is not why I escaped, you know. It just, and
I'm so ashamed of that. That's so awful. I can't believe it. You know, it's no picnic to watch these great institutions hang themselves.
Yeah. I literally felt like it's a suicide of civilization. Like we are killing ourselves here, and that's why, like, what? I mean, that's what scares me is that when I was so grateful to going to South Korea was outside of North Korea, there was at least a place that was left to be free. And all these people obsessed fighting for, you know, climate change, animals' rights, gender equality, transgender, whatever, all these things people are fighting for. Wonderful. But then imagine when nobody's free in this world, who's gonna fight for us? And that's like what terror for me is like, imagine all of us became enslaved, like North Koreans, all of us did in that system. There's no one can stand up for any of us. And I guess because I always knew that it wasn't guaranteed. Like when I go camping with my friends somehow always have confidence that they're gonna find food, even though when they're going to the remote area. Not me, I always packing this like energy bars, blah, blah, always with me because I know like you can end up not having ever all food. So maybe this is a mentality that in the West, freedom was always there. Somehow people think it's gonna be miraculously gonna be always there. And for me, it's like, no, it can be not there.
That's, you know, that's why we were supposed to be educating young people. We were supposed to be teaching them that, no, it's not always there. It's fragile, and you better take care of it, because the default condition is authoritarian starvation. And if that isn't happening, it's a bloody miracle.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I've
that's-
seen this over and over in the universities too. You know, it was often the case that it was my psychology classes where the students learned about what happened in Stalinist Soviet Union and Maoist China. They hadn't been taught at all. They hadn't been taught that tens of millions of people died in China. They hadn't been taught about what happened in North Korea. They hadn't been taught about what happened in Russia. It was like that never existed, even though the Cold War was all about that. And it's appalling. And I think you see exactly the same thing. Well, you're pointing out exactly the same thing. I've been thinking about the question of the meaning of life, and the first objection, I suppose, that arose in my mind was an objection to the question itself, because there might not be a meaning in life. There are places where people derive meaning, and you can list them, and it's useful practically if people are thinking about how to organize their life, if they're unhappy and they want to know how things might be better. I mean, my observation, and obviously not only mine, is that people generally need to have a career or a job to keep the wolf from the door, but also to engage them productively with others, which is a primary source of meaning for conscientious people and for creative people alike. You need to pursue your education to flesh out your intellectual capacity. You have to take care of your health, physical and mental. You need an intimate relationship. You need a family. You need friends. You need intelligent use of your leisure time. You have to regulate your susceptibility to the temptations that might lead you astray, drugs and alcohol and perhaps pornography and those sorts of things. But then there is a core to all of that around which these more practical endeavors arrange themselves, and that's something like attention to the spiritual or the philosophical domain or the religious domain. I think you can, in some sense, put all those together, and that might be, well, it might be the attempt to answer explicitly, or at least to address the question of, well, what is all of that practical life in service of? And you said, for example, that when you were working with the inner city kids in Halifax, you were trying to help them realize that they were meant for the higher things and vice versa. And someone might ask,